Those who have seen a costume of a plague doctor have said it looks menacing. The main feature of the costume was that of a mask that had a beak attached to it. Inside here would have been burning herbs. Those who wore these would have been doctors attending to those who were ill. One of the responsibilities of these doctors wasn't necessarily to go into these places to help heal people. Rather, their main role was to keep a tally of those that passed away. Charles de Lorne was a French medical doctor who worked in several regions during the 17th century. He gained a wealth of knowledge and was the personal physician to members of the royal family. The main one being that of Louis XIII, who was the King of France. Charles is also known for being behind the creation of the costume worn by plague doctors. He said the following about the invention. The nose is half a foot long, shaped like a beak filled with perfume. Under the coat we wear boots made in Moroccan leather and a short sleeve blouse and smooth skin. The hat and gloves are also made of the same skin, with spectacles over the eyes. End quote. Historical researchers have said this would have been a terrible time to be alive. Those who lived during this era thought they were suffering because they angered God. This meant that some people would ask the doctors to hit them with the wooden sticks they would carry around. It's suspected that one of the worst things about being alive during this era would have been the smell. This is behind why the doctors would place flowers and herbs inside the beings, saying that it's likely the smell would have been unbearable. One of the problems with this suit, though, was that in order to breathe properly, holes were poked into the beak. Although this meant that an airflow was created, it also meant that the doctors were not protecting themselves. This led to the majority of them catching the plague and passing away shortly after. The doctor's uniform has become a staple from this era, but now police have said that on the lookout for one of these doctors. Residents close to Norwich have said they've been seeing a plague doctor walking the streets, with some saying that the individual placed their beak on the window and then looked inside. When the news broke, it caused a variety of different opinions to be put forward. Some said that the dark humor was funny, and that perhaps the individual was just trying to make people smile during everything that's gone on, while others have said it's not funny, and whoever is behind this has been worrying the locals. Police have come forward and said they're keen to offer words of advice to the individual, and say that it's not an ideal time to be dressing up as a 17th century plague doctor. The person was dressed in the traditional clothing from this era, sporting a long black coat, a hat that had the iconic beak attached to it, and large boons. Some of the first images of the individual were shared to the Norwich Facebook group, saying that they were worried that this individual was just roaming the streets, and said that something needs to be done as children who see them are getting scared. Police have said they want to speak to the individual about their actions, but others have said it's unlikely they'll be caught as they haven't been seen in a while. One local who took photos of the doctor said the following. It's like 20 degrees and he's walking around wearing a full black suit. It looks ridiculous. It's clearly for attention because normal people just wouldn't do that. End quote. Another local said the following. I was just sitting there and I was getting angry, as my mom has a phobia of masks. I know that even in the daylight, if she was to go around the corner and bump into him, she'd be scared. Kids would also be frightened, and also my mom would be frightened. End quote. While this person said the following, people getting annoyed about a guy dressing up like this seriously are the worst. It's really not that big of a deal. People need to relax and enjoy the show. I think whoever is behind this is funny. It made me laugh when I read the story. It's not that deep and people need to relax. End quote. One user said that people shouldn't be laughing at them as it's not funny, saying that if she sees the doctor again, she will get into contact with the police and work with them in finding the individual. A Norfolk police spokesman said the following. Although no offenses have been committed at this time, officers are keen to trace the individual in order to provide words of advice about the implications of his actions on the local community. Should any further information come forward about offenses being committed, we will act accordingly. End quote. Another person spoke out about this, saying the following. I think this is hilarious. I heard about people getting annoyed about this, but I think the person is probably just trying to make people smile. Perhaps this was the Halloween costume they didn't get to wear this year. At least they made the news. While another person said the following. I can see why people would laugh at this, but it's not funny when you have children. Although I didn't see them, I can believe the stories shared by parents who said their children cried when they saw them. It's not funny, and this person shouldn't be doing it during a time like this. End quote. Since the reports have been made, there haven't been any reports since. The community who reported the incident have said they're happy the individual was stomped, saying that everyone can now relax and get on with their lives. So what do you guys make of this announcement? Do you think this is funny and that people are overreacting? Some said the person likely did this to cheer people up. Or do you think this is too far and that they shouldn't have done this? As the Israelites were making their way across the desert after their capture from Egypt, Moses, with strict orders from God himself, commanded them to construct the infamous Ark of the Covenant. Inside the Ark is home to numerous tablets engraved with the 10 Commandments from the Hebrew Bible that are believed to host magical powers, both good and evil. The tablets are believed to be made of gold from the Garden of Eden, representing the mortality of the universe. Like any biblical story, the truth of the matter is up to interpretation. Scholars who have studied the last Ark of the Covenant have debated whether the Ark is made of gold or wood, what kind of powers it has, and ultimately where it ended up after vanishing from Jerusalem in 587 BC. God gave the Israelites extreme specific instructions for building the Ark of the Covenant according to God. The Ark should be made of both wood and gold. God then instructed the builders to sheath the wood with gold both inside and out. There was to be a cherub facing a certain direction on the lid of the chest, with its wings spread upwards casting a shadow below. To imagine the Israelites wandering through the desert for 40 years were expected to create such an artistic masterpiece. With only their hands and some gold is a huge undertaking, even with God's guidance. To make the story more believable to modern people, it's now believed that God chose only one man to be the designer of the Ark and gifted him with the skills he would need to complete the task. One of the most popular theories is that the Israelites used the Ark to gain advantages on their way to conquer certain regions. Because the Ark was thought to be so powerful and had brought the Israelites such good fortune, it became a hot commodity. It was eventually stolen from the Israelites, but shortly thereafter the thieves were swept with disease and fatal illnesses, causing them to return the Ark immediately. For many years the Ark was lost to history, but according to audio recordings of Ron Wyatt, he claims to have found the Ark inside a chamber. Here's a transcript of the interview. Okay, the recorder's on now, so can you go ahead and basically tell me what happened? On the excavation, therefore, the Ark of the Covenant, primarily I was interested in just the Ark of the Covenant. However, when I did the excavation down the clear face, I ran into cutouts and we ran into cross holes, and at the bottom of this ancient quarry showed there was a crucifixion and execution spot. The Romans crucified their people there. The Jews, because of some of their special arrangements with the Romans, they basically stoned people there and beat them as examples. That's what took place there. Anyway, once we found that place, I knew that I needed to get inside that escarpment because there were several indications that it was just a system of tunnels and chambers and that I needed to basically just go to chamber, tunnel by tunnel, systematically go through there until I found the Ark of the Covenant or until I didn't find it. And so we found it on January the 6th, 1982 at approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I found it, it was in a situation that I'd not anticipated or expected. That was that it was in a chamber that was totally filled with what appeared to be debris, and what turned out to be a bunch of materials of furnishings of the first temple. Covered first by animal skins, then that covered by boards, and then covered by stones, just whatever they could get their hands on. It looked as though it had been done in a hurry. It looked like they grabbed everything whatever they could to fill the place, and it was still a little fuzzy on why that would be done. But I don't see why I need to know everything. When God does something, I just know it's done perfectly. On the occasion of my 4th visit, I was going to make another attempt at getting some video footage. At that time, I'd not had any success with any kind of reproduction attempt. This included Polaroid cameras, 35mm cameras, a VHS camera, and video system. So anyway, I went into the chamber and loaded myself in there. And of course, the thing that became apparent immediately was that the place was totally cleaned. Somebody had done what I decided that I was going to do. That was to clean everything, haul the debris, and take everything out. And I guess I should say a couple of words here, that the Ark of the Covenant was not covered in all the debris like everything else. It was in a separate container within walls and a stone box. This extended from the floor, which I didn't know at the time. But anyway, the box extended up within approximately 3 inches of the ceiling. I would have had to have been there when the cleanup took place in order to know all of that, and I simply was not there. But anyway, the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat, was in a set manner underneath the crack that came down, that extended down from the crucifixion site above, and there are several things that are rather remarkable about what happened there. The place was cleaned up, and the Ark of the Covenant was just sitting against the wall at the east side of the cave. And the cave is not perfectly oriented east. It's just on the eastern end. Behind this is this crystalline wall that emits the color of the rainbow. End quote. As of right now, though, his discoveries and claims have been dismissed by scientists, saying that the Ark of the Covenant has not been found. But amateur researchers believe that Ron did find the Ark and it's now been kept hidden somewhere. So what do you make of this recent announcement? Do you think Ron found the real Ark of the Covenant? Or do you think his story is made up? Mexico has a rich history and is home to many interesting structures and monuments. Mayan structures and other ancient ruins have intrigued people for years and has been a location that many archaeologists and researchers have visited. Archaeological evidence has shown us that this civilization started to build their structures around 3,000 years ago. The Maya was never ruled by a single ruler. Instead, they established several smaller states. Interestingly, various locations across Mexico have given us an insight into these ancient civilizations, and these treasures are usually found by archaeologists who are doing work in the area. There's also been stories of amateur researchers finding strange artifacts within these regions. Although professionals have criticized these amateurs by saying they could be damaging the region, and that they shouldn't be removing things without having permission. This is because scientists and researchers like to keep track of artifacts that come out of a region. And this is because it helps them create a better picture of what was going on in this region thousands of years ago. When you start removing artifacts, it makes it harder to track what's going on. Regardless, amateur archaeologists have taken it upon themselves to dig in these regions. And this is in the hopes of finding ancient treasures. These can go for big money in underground markets and are a big enough incentive for these amateur diggers to risk getting caught. One interesting discovery that was recently made, however, started to raise eyebrows. And this is because the artifact in question didn't resemble a human, but rather that of an extraterrestrial. The artifact was discovered by a man back in March of 2017, and he detailed that he discovered it inside an underground cave complex close to Veracruz. One of the first things you'll notice is that this discovery doesn't match typical depictions found in this location. It shows what looks like a large extraterrestrial holding two small eats. Information is limited, but the man said he was digging in this region when he made the discovery. He said there's lots of these underground chambers that haven't been excavated by archaeologists, and that inside them you'll occasionally find these strange artifacts. Others who have seen these have said that perhaps others have been found and aren't being shared with the general public. Others went on from this and said that every so often these strange artifacts come to light, and that the amateur researchers who found them are usually silenced before they can come forward with their discoveries. It's for this reason that some have suggested that something may be going on in this region and that officials don't want these discoveries being shown to the general public. Researchers have said that recent discoveries only give us a small glimpse into our history, going on to say that over 98% of our ancient history is being lost. Ancient carvings and structures can give us an idea of what certain civilizations were capable of. And the some within the archaeological community that disagree with how advanced certain cultures were. Following on from this image, going back a few months ago, these photographs started to be shared on ancient archaeological groups, once again claiming that amateur archaeologists found these artifacts while digging. One report states the artifacts were discovered during the building of the Mayan train. Currently, construction work is underway to build a large railway in Mexico. The construction began in December 2018, with various people coming forward and saying that strange discoveries have been made in the area. These artifacts were discovered in a region known as Quintana Roo. There's no other way to describe these artifacts other than they look like extraterrestrials, possessing big eyes, a large oval head and matching just the overall shape of the gray alien. This has had social media users convinced that this is the real deal. Because these images were only posted recently, it's been tough to track down more information about them, who found them and where they're currently being held. Amateur researchers were obviously excited when these artifacts started to be shared, claiming that it could be the evidence to back up the claims that UFOs had been visiting us for thousands of years. One of the things that people struggle with is trying to track down where these came from and who took the images. The stories behind these images always follows a similar theme. A person or a group of people digging close to the Mayan temples manages to find some strange-looking artifacts. Reports on where these artifacts were found varies depending on who you talk to, with websites not being able to reveal much information. Not everyone is impressed with the findings, though, with one Mexican archaeologist saying that these are fakes, and that although they were allegedly found with other Mayan artifacts, it's thought they were placed here in order to make the findings seem more genuine, with others saying the following: if this was the real deal, it would be one of the biggest archaeological discoveries ever made. I can't find much information about these. Searching Google only brings up a few results. End quote. As some have pointed out, though, it seems like a lot of work to go through. Why would someone build these if an archaeologist is just going to shut them down? With another user saying the following: I'm on the edge about these discoveries. On one hand, they sound too good to be true, but on the other, I want to believe. I'm sure if these are real, though, they'll likely be taken and stored away somewhere. I doubt these will be given any serious consideration. After all, could you imagine if these turned out to be real? It would pretty much rewrite history. End quote. Regardless, though, they report that a team of archaeologists were surprised to find the ancient artifacts, saying that it's one of the biggest discoveries that's been made in the area. Archaeologists who have been based in the region have reviewed the images and have said they don't think they're real, saying that although they match artifacts that have been found in the region, the likelihood is that they were placed in a specific location to make them look more genuine. At the moment, no one is sure where these artifacts are being kept, and no one knows when the next ones will be discovered. Perhaps in the near future, more information will be released, but as of right now, we can only speculate about what they depict and whether they are genuine or not. So what do you make of these recent mysterious artifacts found in Mexico? Do you think they're real, or do you think they're just fakes? The oceans remain some of the most mysterious places on our planet. Beneath the depths are untold secrets waiting to be discovered. Every year people manage to capture strange photographs, leaving those who took them confused and wanting answers. Although the majority of these eventually get answers, there's a fair amount that remains a mystery. This interesting photo was recently shared to Facebook, and it shows a large structure that appears to be rising out of the ocean. This immediately caused a variety of different theories to be put forward by those who saw the images, with them ranging from it being the mythical Atlantis, to it being a cruise ship or even that of a ghost ship. I talked with the individual who shared the images, and they revealed the following details. The photograph was captured on the 7th of August at 9:37 p.m. in 2016. This is the correct time and date that can be seen on the top of the photo. We had left our last port of Lisbon earlier that day at around 5 p.m. So we were in the Atlantic on the edge of the Bay of Biscay. It was my son Tom, 11, at the time who noticed it. We were on our balcony portside just doing what we normally did each night. I was looking for dolphins as we'd been all around the Med, and other members of my family had seen them but I hadn't, so I was on the lookout for them. This is the first time that I've posted any information on these photographs, and I'm amazed at the variety of replies that have been sent. Some suggested that perhaps I messed with the photos, but that definitely didn't happen as I am rubbish with tech. Interestingly, I even had two individuals that ended up calling each other out, as one said Atlantis, and the other one said that he called it first. End quote. As of right now, people are still undecided on what the photos show. There's some that have said you can see something mysterious like a ghost ship, a mirage, or even Atlantis, while others suggested that it could be something like another ship. And the reason you can't see it is because it's going over the curvature of the Earth. This is a phenomenon that is known and that researchers say is behind many ghost ship tales. When a ship sinks beyond the curvature of the Earth, it gives off the illusion that it's floating in the air and that the body of it vanishes, when in reality you just can't see it from your perspective. However, this does usually happen when ships are quite far off in the distance. And as some have pointed out, it looks as if this object is relatively close to the cruise ship. This phenomenon is also normally seen when people are at near enough the same level as the object in the distance. And in this case, the individual was near the top of the cruise ship. It's for these reasons that others decided to put forward different theories to try and explain what was seen. One person said the following about the structure. It might be an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean or a prison for anomalies. End quote. I talked with another person who said they think it might be Atlantis. They said the following, Atlantis is a mythical city that's been talked about for years. It's no secret that the ancient city has been elusive and that researchers haven't been able to track down its true location. What we're seeing here is Atlantis rising from the depths. I think this man may have captured the city in all its details. Others have said the image is just another ship, but I don't believe this. I think the ocean is home to many secrets and what we're seeing here is the ancient city. End quote. The most damning evidence against the existence of Atlantis is the clear lack of physical remnants of the so-called city. Surely if such a powerful island nation were to exist, then records, pieces, or artifacts from such a place would still be around somewhere, just waiting to be found. In November 2018, a British satellite firm named Merlin Burrows stated in 2018 that they had discovered images that could show remnants of the long-lost city. Merlin Burrows points towards supposed ruins that lie in the Don Ener National Park in Spain. According to their claims, there is evidence of concrete, which could be between 10,000 and 12,000 years old. After first being written about by the philosopher Plato, the city of Atlantis has garnered a reputation of being in control of advanced ancient technology, which was subsequently lost to time in the ocean. Because of this, efforts to find the supposed lost city have grown in frequency, with many people across the globe trying to find its location. Bruce Blackburn, a representative from Merlin Burrows, states, and we've got a body of evidence that we've presented, and we have a whole host of proof points, and we are quite happy for people to take a viewpoint. We've released the information and we've got some films, and we accept that there will be people who think it isn't true. End quote. It's interesting when these types of photographs are taken. It makes us question what could be hiding under the dams. Although scientists have done a great job at unraveling some of the ocean's biggest sea currents, it's fair to say there's many more waiting to be unraveled. In conclusion, mainstream scientists have even admitted themselves that the oceans are mysteries in their own right. A large portion of our oceans still remain unexplored, and it's anyone's guess as to what could be lurking in the dams. So far, scientists have discovered over 242,000 marine species. However, it's been estimated that every year over 2,000 new oceanic species are discovered. With the oceans being so vast and widespread, it's likely that scientists and researchers will be making discoveries well into the future. Scientists have done a great job at answering some of the ocean's mysteries, but it's important to keep an open mind about what could be laying in the dams. Who knows where the next discovery will lead us? So what do you make of these interesting photographs? Every year, thousands of people report strange things in our sky. Sometimes they get investigated, and the majority of them get explained as everyday things such as planes, flares, helicopters, natural phenomena, blimps, wildlife, or even camera anomalies. Reports show that in 2018, there was over 3,700 reports of unidentified flying objects, and in 2019, there was over 6,800 reports, with some saying this is just a rough estimate and only the ones that got reported, saying that it's likely thousands of more UFOs were seen by people across the planet. The most recent one that's making the rounds is this strange object that was seen above Mexico. Residents have reported that a large black structure was seen hovering in the sky, while other residents said the object came through what appeared to be a portal. As with the majority of these types of sightings, different theories were put forward to explain what was seen. One woman called Veronica detailed that the object was large, and that it was hard to see what shape it was. She went on to say that the object in question made no noise, and that it was easy to see because of how big it was. Others carried on with this and said they saw the craft come through what looked like a portal. However, not everyone agreed with this statement, and said that it just suddenly appeared. Once the photograph was posted on social media, other people came forward and said they'd seen something similar. One person named Rose has stated they'd seen objects that looked similar to this one, noting that they're normally quite big and seen during the nighttime. They said this is the first time they've seen one of these crass photographs during the daytime. One of the toughest things with these types of sightings is trying to track down who took the original photographs. I spoke with one person who claimed they saw something similar a few weeks before this photo was shared. They said that at the moment Mexico has been a hotspot for UFO sightings, and that the media there isn't really covering the large amount of UFOs that have been reported by residents. He went on to say that he's not sure why they aren't being covered, but that there's definitely something strange going on. He states that one of the most commonly cited things here is strange glowing orbs that are seen during the night, saying that they can be seen flying around in the night sky at fast speeds. Something interesting that he noted was that he's seen black helicopters approach these orbs, but whenever the helicopters get close, they just suddenly shoot up and vanish. It's interesting to note that black helicopters are often seen in areas when unidentified flying objects have been seen. And as of right now, no one is sure where these appear. It's been suggested by some UFO researchers that black helicopters are part of a secret program that investigates UFOs. Eyewitnesses who have seen them have said they don't have any markings on the side, and are usually completely blacked out. The military have denied this, and have said there's no branch or secret project that is flying around in black helicopters. One location that's shrouded in mystery is that of the Popocatépetl volcano. The Popocatépetl is an active strata volcano, which can be found in central Mexico, and the name of it translates to Smoky Mountain. This is fitting as the volcano is quite active. However, over the years it's been making the news for a different reason. Various webcams are pointed towards the volcano, which gives users a good view of it from the safety of their home. But it's not just ash, plumes, and clouds that have been witnessed around this volcano. Many people have said they've witnessed unidentified flying objects. These aren't just stories either. People have managed to take photographs and screenshots of the objects while above the volcano. Interestingly, the most commonly shaped objects that are seen are the disc and cigar. However, various other shapes have been seen, and this has caused UFO researchers to label this place as a UFO hotspot. What's strange, though, is that these unidentified crafts are not just seen above the volcano, but they've also been observed flying directly into the volcano and then back out again. This has caused UFO researchers to suggest that something may be going on inside the volcano itself. The most recent one was captured on a webcam on the 20th of April in 2020. The object in question appears to be a glowing orb. These are often reported by people worldwide, and they are known for being difficult to photograph as they just appear as glowing objects and don't really show up well on the webcams. Due to the vast amounts of reports around this volcano that all seem to match up, this begs the question of what these objects are and why they're so interested in this volcano. No other volcano on our planet is more active than this one in terms of having strange objects flying in and around it. However, researchers monitoring the volcano released this following statement. We've reported that each day during the 17th and 23rd of March, there were 74 to 182 steam and gas emissions from the volcano, some of which contained minor amounts of ash. An explosion at 10 on the 17th of March ejected materials onto the flanks and produced an ash plume that rose 1.2 kilometers above the crater rim and drifted southeast. Minor ashfall was reported in the region during the 17th and 18th of March. Some emissions were accompanied by material ejected out of the crater between 10 and 11, and this was on the 18th of March. An explosion at 7 on the 19th of March ejected material a short distance from the crater. On the 22nd of March, an ash plume rose 1 kilometer and drifted south and ejected materials on the flanks at a distance of 800 meters from the crater. The alert level remained at yellow, which is phase 2 middle level colored on a 3-color scale. Others have said these objects could be a natural phenomena like ball lightning. Ball lightning is the strange occurrence of when the conditions appear to be just right, and the static discharge of a normal thunderstorm creates what appears to be a floating ball of pure lightning. Not only do these strange, unexplained instances of ball lightning create an unexplainable perfect spherical shape, but they also appear to move erratically through the sky, and have often been mistaken as alien encounters. Many don't buy this and suggest that there's something far more mysterious going on at this volcano. So what do you make of this interesting photograph taken above Mexico? Do you think it's an unidentified flying object? Or is it something natural or man-made? Every year scientists and researchers make fascinating discoveries. However, some of the most interesting ones are found by everyday people. In some cases, these accidental finds have even confused researchers, causing them to investigate the area further. One interesting discovery was made by a construction worker in China. The team were carrying out work in the region of Taizhou. They said that the road they were working on needed to be widened. However, halfway through, one of the workers noticed that there was a large object embedded in the ground. They could see that whatever the object was, it was big, with some of the workers suggesting that it may have been older than the city itself. The team then focused their attention on trying to dig out the artifact, being careful in the process as they weren't sure if it had any historical significance. After hours of working, they managed to dig 6 foot around the object, allowing them to get a better look at it. One of the first things they noticed was how big it was. It's estimated that it measured over 7 feet in length. The team managed to haul the object out of the ground and noticed that it appeared to be a tomb. They decided it would be best if archaeological and local historians were called in to investigate further. Once here, the specialists observed the outside of the block and determined that it was likely a tomb. Whether there was anything inside, though, was another question, as throughout history many of these ancient tombs were robbed for their goods. The archaeologists took all the necessary precautions to open the box as safely as they could. The first thing they saw when opening it was a strange liquid that started to seep out. However, after carefully moving things around, they soon discovered that the tomb wasn't empty. Inside was a mummy. The archaeologists were able to determine that the person was a female and she was over 700 years old. It wasn't until they saw her clothing and the jewelry she had on her that they realized this individual would have been very high up in the Ming dynasty. Once they knew what they were dealing with, the team called in more people to help assist. Once they arrived, they started to carefully remove the mummy from the tomb, noting that she was in incredible condition, and that this process was made easy due to the fact that she hadn't seen the light in hundreds of years. The mummy was in such good condition that the archaeologists said that things like her shoes looked almost brand new. This is just one example where an incredible artifact was lying underneath an ordinary place. Another interesting discovery to come from China is that of Zhang Heng's earthquake device. Zhang Heng's earthquake device has caused interest and confusion among those that have gone on to study it, suggesting that in ancient times individuals existed that were way ahead of their time. Although no surviving artifacts have existed and no complete diagrams or drawings of the device have survived, there have been accounts all the way from the ancient times of the Young dynasties more than 2,000 years ago that talk about in detail a strange device capable of measuring and predicting the positions of earthquakes. The device was said to have been created by a genius known as Zhang Heng that lived in China during the Han dynasty and was responsible for a wide variety of breakthroughs in astronomy, mathematics, science, engineering, cartography, and poetry. Interestingly, it appeared that the emperor during this time was well aware of the fact that when an earthquake would occur in a far from much region of China, it was impossible to know how and when to send aid if no one from the region had the supplies vast enough to reach the emperor and alert him of the damages caused by the earthquake. This led Zhang Heng to create a device that was detailed in Chinese literature as being able to detect the small movements of a seismic event from far away and point towards the direction of its origin with incredible accuracy. Although the inventor would pass away roughly 7 years later, before the first earthquake could occur and prove the legitimacy of the device. The emperor writes that one day he and his servants noticed that the Zhang Heng device was pointing in a direction after having detected a disturbance. Several weeks later, a messenger arrived from a distant land claiming that a region had been at the center of a large earthquake that caused devastation and destruction to its people that then required aid from the emperor. This confirmed the device's ability to sense the position and direction of earthquakes, and so was used then on as the main mechanism of any information regarding the natural disasters in the region. Interestingly, modern-day seismographs, devices that research scientists use to measure the intensity and direction of an earthquake, follow the same principle outlined in the Zhang Heng earthquake device. This more than proves the validity of the device in ancient times, and proves that the ancients had far more knowledge and awareness of the world around them than we give them credit for. Another recent announcement made by Chinese officials is that they plan to send an illumination satellite into orbit. So far, not much information has been released about the project, leaving many to wonder where this idea came from in the first place. Some have suggested the idea has been in testing for a few years now, and the technology was now in place to make it happen. The China Daily newspaper stated that huge mirrors could be launched by 2022. It's not clear from any reports whether this project has any official backing. The artificial moon would work as a mirror, reflecting sunlight back to Earth. So far, we don't have any idea how this object will look, but it's said it won't be small. Reports say the object will orbit 500 kilometers or 310 miles above the Earth. This device is said to be able to reflect sunlight across an area of between 10 kilometers and 80 kilometers, or 6.2 to 50 miles. What's worried some people, though, is that it's been estimated this artificial moon will be 8 times as bright as the real moon. Some have said it could have an effect on wildlife, and even some people sleep if the object is that bright. Officials have said, though, that researchers predict that by constructing this artificial moon, it could save China up to £132 million a year. What you make of these interesting discoveries? States has one of the strongest military presences in the world. Figures show that in 2019 alone, the United States spent around $718.6 billion US. Interestingly, this is actually a decrease when compared to 2010, in which it's estimated that the US spent over $849.8 billion on the military. It's not surprising then that with these types of numbers, some have suggested the US has some secret programs. With a budget like this, they can afford the very best to ensure that their military is one of the strongest. This has caused a variety of theories to suggest that the US will do whatever is necessary to ensure they come out on top. Every couple of months or so, this photograph starts to make their rounds on social media. It's normally suggested that the photo shows a real-life giant that's being used by the US military, and this could be a new type of super soldier that would give the US an advantage on the battlefield. As with the majority of these photographs, tracking down information on it has proven difficult. The photograph shows several military officials looking at and patrolling a building. But one thing that's noticeable is that this individual looks much taller than the other soldiers. The majority of the men look average size, ranging from 5 to 6 feet. But the taller man that can be seen looks to be around 7 to 8 feet, with some suggesting that they may even be taller. It's these types of photographs that get used to back up theories that the United States military is using giants, and that they're only used during special operations to ensure they don't get seen. Others have said these large soldiers have been found in other photographs, and again, estimations put these individuals at being between 7 to 8 feet in height. There are also theories that have been spread that these soldiers have been created in lamps. Although this idea may sound familiar, this idea is actually based on facts. Steve Rogers may come to mind when we put forward this idea. U.S. officials have said they're working on programs that could see super soldiers become a reality within the next 30 years. The Defense Department's biotechnologies for health and human performance have been vocal about the idea of creating the ideal super soldier of the future. The group is studying and looking at future tech that will be able to enhance human biological abilities across many areas. These include things like enhancing the soldier's vision, hearing, and muscular control. They said the following about the process. Technology is exhilarating, and we're entering the fourth industrial revolution. This biological revolution. To some extent, we've already seen the integration of man and machine over many years in the use of pacemakers. To some extent, we're already seeing mankind become more intimate with technology. End quote. It said this will only become more apparent in the next few years. One person said the following, "I'm interested and worried to see what this new super soldier of the future looks like." It's important to remember that we currently have things like performance enhancements that can take the average human and make them much faster and stronger than before. And this whole process can be achieved within a few months. Whatever the US military is working on must make these enhancements look insignificant. Perhaps it's already happened, and perhaps in some parts of the world these super soldiers have already been deployed. This isn't something they'd want to be open about, as they'd want to have the edge over other militaries. End quote. Going back to the photograph, I've said it's some of the best proof we have of advanced soldiers. Or some offered an explanation as to why the soldier is so big. They said the following, "I think what's happening here is that the soldier is closest to the camera than the other soldiers. So it gives off the illusion that he's actually much bigger than what he is." End quote. Others noted that it looks as though the tall soldier is on the same level as the others. The majority of those who have seen this photograph has said it's still a mystery. Recent announcement by the US Navy has got people talking. Glowing orbs is a phenomenon that's been witnessed all across the world. These glowing orbs come in a variety of different colors ranging from blue, red, orange, yellow, pink, silver, green, and black, and most people who've seen them have said they appear to pulsate and fly at extremely fast speeds. It's not known what they are, but some have linked them to the UFO phenomena. It's important to remember that a UFO is an unidentified flying object, and does not mean the object in question is alien in nature. It's only been in recent years that people have connected the two. It seems, though, that the US Navy may be taking some inspiration from these objects, as they recently come forward and announced that they'll be trying to create phantom images of aircrafts. This is so that enemies and things like heat-seeking missiles will be put off. The US Navy has patented technology to create these images, and it's thought they will be created with infrared technology. The US may be able to, in the near future, create their own phantom images. One of the issues that the military has faced is being able to protect military aircrafts from enemy missiles. Various ideas have been put forward in the past, and although some have helped, none have been able to stop these attacks. The system has been described as the following. There can be multiple laser systems mounted on the back of the air vehicle, with each laser system generating a ghost image such that there would appear to be multiple aircrafts present. End quote. Interestingly, this has caused some to say that the US has already been using this tank, and this could be behind some UFO sightings that have been reported. UFO sightings have been reported for many decades now, and although the majority of them get explained, there's some that remain unsolved. Others suggested this idea came to officials when they were investigating UFOs and their capabilities. It's a known fact that for years government officials have been interested and have studied unidentified flying objects, and perhaps this gave them the incentive to try and replicate what these crafts were able to do. So what do you make of this photograph? And do you think the US currently has super soldiers deployed? The city of Jerusalem is a sacred place. It's said that Jerusalem is the location where Jesus was brought as a child, and it's for this reason that this place is important for many reasons. Interestingly, amateur UFO researchers have suggested that Jerusalem is actually a hot spot for these crafts, and that every year people close to this region report seeing strange lights in the sky. One person recently sent me the following message. Have a sighting that I'd like to share with you. I don't want to tell anyone I know about this as it goes against my beliefs. For the last few nights have been seeing these strange lights above Jerusalem. I live very close by and I've never seen anything like it before. The objects look like large blue balls that would pulsate. I could see them flying around at high speeds. Oddly, though, they weren't making any sound while doing this. They would occasionally pulsate and then run the error again. It's strange because it looked as though the lights were almost looking for something. They weren't just flying randomly. They were dipping down and then back up again. I tried to take some photographs, but the lights were not very big, and they weren't showing up on the camera very well. They just looked like a blur when I reviewed the images. I've done some research online, and I can see that others have seen strange lights in the sky above Jerusalem. I don't know what it was, but I thought I'd share my experience with you. End quote. This eyewitness sounds like they saw an orb. These crafts are known within UFO circles. Glowing orbs is a phenomenon that's been witnessed all over the globe. These glowing orbs come in a variety of different colors, ranging from blue, red, orange, yellow, pink, silver, green, and black. And most people who've seen them have said they appear to pulsate and fly at extremely fast speeds. Those who've seen them have said they look to be under intelligent control, and that due to how fast they fly, it's near impossible to get a high-quality photo of them. UFO researchers who've looked into these reports have said these crafts are some of the most interesting ones reported from around the world, with some saying that they remind them of drones. Due to UFOs being seen in this region, it's caused some to put forward some interesting theories. And one of these is that perhaps the Star of Bethlehem was actually an unidentified flying object. This idea has been put forward by many UFO believers, stating that if Jesus was really someone who had powers, then why is it so out there to suggest that the star was actually a craft? UFO researchers pointed the fact that unidentified flying objects have been reported all throughout history, noting that ancient papyrus and cave paintings show strange crafts in the sky. It's for this reason that they believe these objects have been present throughout our history. Others put more at their theories and suggest that Jesus may have been sent down from one of these crafts and that it was guiding them throughout their journey. Skeptics, though, deny this and say that just because a cave painting looks similar to a UFO, it doesn't mean that it's proof of unidentified crafts visiting our planet, also going on to say that these are just theories, and as of right now we have no proof of UFOs ever visiting Earth. Believers say, though, that we have proof of advanced civilizations and UFOs that have visited our planet. One of these that's been used to back up the idea that humans are more advanced than we make out is that of the carvings from Kalbaktash. The image in question has been described as some as looking eerily similar to a modern-day rocket engine, and this has caused ancient theorists to suggest that early civilizations had prior knowledge of rocketry and were even in the early stages of using this technology. Various photographs can be found of this petroglyph next to a modern-day rocket, and it's not hard to see why people suggest that early civilizations had this technology. Going back a few years ago, the Times of India announced that they had discovered something interesting inside a cave. Dr. Burgat said that he and his team found something that resembled an alien, and suggested that the cave painting could be over 10,000 years old. He even went on to say that he'd like NASA's and the Indian Space Research Organization's opinion on the discovery. Some theorists have suggested that going back thousands of years ago, advanced civilizations flourishing. And not only that, but they also left behind evidence. For example, some point the ancient stone figures found in the middle of a number of ancient mine ruins down in Guatemala. These feature an almost perfect recreation of a modern-day astronaut carved in stone. This stone figure has been at the center of many ancient civilization debates, and some claim the gods were depicted in such a way due to the fact there were many advanced creatures visiting from faraway. Paintings can be found in a cave close to central India. What's interesting is that when first seeing the paintings, there are many that show humans and animals. However, it also stunned the researchers because it showed kangaroos and giraffes. These are not native to India. However, it was this painting that stood out. Dr. Burgat said the following about the discovery. The findings suggest that humans in prehistoric times may have seen or imagined beings from other planets, which still creates curiosity among people and researchers. In a few pictures, they're even shown wearing spacesuits. It's not the first time you've found cave paintings like this, but never until now with such detail. Flying saucers, equipment, spacesuits, depictions of abduction are some of the images one can find in this region. End quote. Again, some suggest this shows evidence of beings visiting this planet, but others are not so sure, with some saying that all it shows is a tall-looking being. Some skeptics have said these are just bad drawings, and that we're looking too deep into them. Others have pointed to the objects like the Dogu figurines, suggesting that many of these strange depictions can be found. The Dogu figurines have fascinated theorists in the ancient astronaut community for years. They are used as hard evidence of the existence of extraterrestrials during the times of our ancestors. The Dogu figurines depict small humanoid creatures that appear to be visually similar to that of the small gray alien. The purpose of the Dogu are widely unknown, but they have been found all around the Japanese isla and have consistently dated to be somewhere around 14,000 to 16,000 years old, which is 4,000 to 6,000 years before the first human civilizations began to arise. What you make of these interesting stories? Ghost stories are often fascinating and hold insight into unexplained phenomena. Universities are a hotbed for urban legends and ghost stories, with many built on historical sites. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 haunted universities. Ohio University Haunted Room 428. Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, the 9th oldest public university in the United States, established in 1804 and has a room believed to be so frightening it is permanently closed. Room 428 in Wilson Hall has a reputation with multiple students passing away under mysterious circumstances in the room. The building itself is not as old as the university. Built in 1965 and named after the late faculty member Hiram Roy Wilson, it has become the basis of several urban legends. In the 1970s, a male student reportedly passed away in room 428, with little revealed about how he lost his life, with some believing it is his ghost haunting the room. Since this loss of life, the room is said to have been the center of paranormal experiences. Even when the door is changed, the face returns. A second student is believed to have passed away in room 428, a female student that was practicing astral projection in the room. Her behavior apparently became unusual and an obsession with the occult grew, with many different tales of her behavior circulating. It is believed that the female student passed away in a violent way while partaking in occult practices. Some stories say that the female took her own life, while other sources say something paranormal happened. After the female passed away, the university sealed the room permanently, saying it was uninhabitable. Students that have lived in this room reported paranormal occurrences and poltergeist reports, such as objects flying across the room, strange voices, and footsteps. There are multiple legends as to why room 428 and Wilson Hall are at the center of paranormal. One theory notes that Wilson Hall is in the center of 5 cemeteries that creates a pentagram. Another legend suggests that Wilson Hall is built on top of an old cemetery. Different sources suggest different cemeteries. One believes it is a Native American burial ground. Another states that it is an early cemetery for the Athens Mental Institute, also known as the Athens Lunatic Asylum. The Athens Mental Institute, built in 1867, is now part of Ohio University, and the complex is called the Ridges, which is also believed to be haunted. While the reason for its haunting is the source of legends, room 428 of Wilson Hall is still not used for any students. With noises still being heard and paranormal experiences still happening near the room, it will likely remain a ghost story told around campus. The University of St. Andrews, Scotland. The University of St. Andrews, Scotland is so well known for being haunted that it is the center of numerous ghost tours. St. Andrews is the oldest university in Scotland and the third oldest in the English-speaking world. Teaching began in 1410 and the university was formally constituted in 1413. Plenty of time to acquire some ghosts. The historic town of St. Andrews is known as one of the most haunted places in Scotland, with reports of ghosts ranging from monks, mysterious women, and even a ghost ship. There are a total of 200 haunted locations and 400 specters believed to haunt St. Andrews. The White Lady is one of St. Andrews' most famous ghosts and is believed to be one of the ladies in waiting of Mary, Queen of Scots, or a former nun who now roams the abbey ruins or the cathedral, which is very close to the university. The university has its own ghost, believed to be Patrick Hamilton, a 16th century student and teacher, the first martyr of the Scottish Reformation. The spot where he passed away is believed to be cursed, and you will notice students dodging his initials in the cobbles on the street beneath the bell tower of St. Salvator's. Patrick Hamilton was executed in 1528 at the age of 24. He was tried as a heretic and his life was taken at the stake for his Protestant beliefs. The ending of his life was not quick and reportedly lasted for over 6 hours, with executioners struggling to light the fires with damp wood failing to ignite and a slow burning fire. There are a few local traditions and myths added to Patrick Hamilton's loss of life. The university notes that the mysterious face carved into the stonework of the college tower above the gateway is that of Patrick Hamilton. It is believed that as he passed away, his face was burned into St. Salvator's tower. Students also refused to step on the initials PH in the spot where he was executed, as rumors state that Patrick Hamilton will curse them to fail their exams. Some students have experienced strange things at execution site, such as the sound of cracking and the smell of burning flesh. The monk that verbally condemned Patrick Hamilton as he was slowly burned, Alexander Campbell, is said to have passed away shortly after, and that he is the lone figure that roams Blackfriars Chapel in the center of St. Andrews. Gettysburg College, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where around 50,000 casualties occurred in a 3-day battle in 1863 in the American Civil War, is home to numerous ghost stories, with multiple tours taking place around the town. It is no surprise that the university here also has a reputation for being haunted. Gettysburg College was established in 1832 as Pennsylvania College, and during the battle, Pennsylvania Hall of the college became a hospital for soldiers from both the North and South. The college has since been the site of numerous Civil War ghost experiences. A scene that has been reportedly witnessed by many across the years is a fully working Civil War hospital in the basement of Pennsylvania Hall. In most cases, witnesses were taking the elevator down to the basement, and when it opened they saw the gruesome scene of wounded soldiers being worked on by doctors and nurses, with the whole scene happening silently. When returning to check on the basement, it had returned normal and no sign of the Civil War operating theater remained. The cries and moans of young men can also be heard at Penn Hall, believed to belong to soldiers that lost their lives here. This is just one of many ghost stories that are reported across the campus. Penn Hall is also home to the Lone Sentinel, or the Lookout, a lone guard that carries a rifle and lantern. It is said that he is seen around as if he was still patrolling the cupolas on campus, watching the northwest area of the battlefield. Stevens Hall is another famous ghost story from the college. Built in 1911, there have been multiple sightings of a blue boy. The rumors are that during an icy winter's night, a boy that was fleeing abuse at a local was given shelter by girls living in the dorm, which at that time was Pennsylvania College Prep School. The house mother knocked on the door and the girls hid the boy outside on the window ledge. Once the house mother had left, the girls looked for the boy, but there was no sign of him apart from footprints in the snow. A boy with a blue face as if he had frozen is believed to haunt Stevens Hall. He is often seen peering inside with his face pressed against the window. Are seen written on frosted panes of glass. Glatfelter Hall at Gettysburg College is home to the Lady in White. One legend surrounding this apparition goes back to a couple which made a pact to take their own life, in which the male backed out and the girl jumped, and she now tries to lure others to jump. Another story behind the Lady in White is that she lost her love as a result of the war and took her own life by jumping from Glatfelter's bell in this version. Anyone who looks into her eyes will meet the same fate. These are just the most famous ghost stories from Gettysburg College, and there are likely many more that have not been told as well. But what do you make of these haunted stories from these three universities? China has recently made headlines as being the first to land a probe on the dark side of the moon. The spacecraft has taken photos of the moon's far side before, but no lander has ever touched down there. This venture could prove that China is going to be a leading power in space exploration alongside the US and Russia. China is now the first nation to land on the side of the moon facing away from Earth. On board the Chang'e 4 there is a robotic rover. Its job will be to explore the terrain for future missions. This mission was no easy task. Experts working on the mission have said that one of the issues they had was communication with the Earth. This is because no one had been sent to this part of the moon before, so this was all new territory. Interestingly, during the mission the rovers were able to capture some interesting images, and one that was sent back allegedly showed a strange anomaly in the background that people couldn't explain. The photograph shows the moon's terrain. However, in the background, people said you can see what looks like a large disk. Once this reached UFO groups, people started to speculate about what this object was, with some saying that it looked like a mound, while others said it resembles the iconic disk UFO. The idea of UFOs being seen on the moon is not anything new. This idea has been shared for years, with people saying that even astronauts have talked about this, saying that while walking on the moon they could see strange objects flying around them. In fact, some astronauts even came forward and detailed their encounters, saying that whatever these crafts were, it was like they were keeping a close eye on them all the time they were on the moon. It's for this reason that when these types of images come to light, some suggest that it could be the real deal. One user said the following: one of the most common places to see unidentified crafts is actually that of our moon. Every year, hundreds of videos are taken that show strange crafts around our moon. What's great about this image, though, is that we rarely see things on the actual surface. For me, I think this is one of the more credible photographs we have of UFOs being present on the moon." End quote. Others carried on from this and said that perhaps those monitoring the images didn't realize anything had been captured. There's others, though, who have gone on to say they think the image just shows a natural formation, or that it could be a case of pareidolia. This is when our minds are tricked into thinking that something is there when it isn't. UFO believers have said, though, this is only used to discredit those who find these types of anomalies and say that the image provided is very clear and definitely shows something resting on the moon. In recent years, there has been a special interest in the dark side of the moon. This popular term refers to the fact that the same physical half of the moon is always facing Earth, which in turn means that there's a dark side. This side, however, has been at the center of many claims, most of which include that there's either bases or strange things going on there. One idea is that on this side of the moon humans have managed to build large outposts, and one of the reasons they did this is because this part of the moon is always facing away from Earth, meaning they could carry out whatever they wanted without getting caught. There's others who have speculated that governments didn't want to go to the dark side of the moon, and this is because they may have been warned not to go there. As interesting as these claims are, at this moment in time they're just theories. But UFO researchers have said that with these types of images, it helps to back up their claims that something strange is happening on the dark side of the moon. NASA have recently come forward and spoken out about these strange crafts seen in and around the moon. They said the following: most commonly, UFO claims are due to perfectly natural flaws or artifacts in our publicly available data. Some of the things that people are seeing are planets, cosmic rays, software glitches, and debris. End quote. Another NASA official said the following: the majority of these alleged UFO sightings can be easily explained. One of the things that people see is space debris that's made its way in front of the cameras. When these pieces of debris are up close, it can look like an unidentified flying object. In reality, people are just seeing a common piece of space debris. End quote. One of the most recent announcements to come from the mission was that another Chinese rover had discovered a strange gel-like substance. At the time, it wasn't known what the gel was, causing various people to put forward their theories. However, it's now been announced by scientists that they figured out what the substance was. It turned out that the gel comes from the many rocks that can be found on the surface. Scientists went on to say that this gel-like substance was likely created when rocks melted together. This could have happened when a meteorite struck the surface of the moon, causing a massive amount of heat to melt the surrounding rocks. The strange gel was discovered back in July of 2019. Chinese officials stated that this find was strange, as you don't normally find something like this on the moon. Photographs soon started to make the rounds, which showed a part of the moon that looked glossy. Scientists then said that after more detailed photographs were sent back, it backed up their theory that this substance was created by immense heat. This research was published in the Earth and Planetary Science Letters. It seems that China isn't stopping anytime soon. They announced that by 2030, the first Chinese astronauts will be setting foot on the moon. This is only the beginning for the Chinese space program, as they are planning to build their own space station by 2022. So what do you guys make of this interesting photograph? Do you think it shows an unidentified flying object resting on the lunar surface? Or do you think this is a case of pareidolia? A psychic is described as someone who has the ability to give information about the past and present. It's for this reason that many have gone to these individuals in times of need. We've all heard of stories of someone who went to a psychic, and although many of these people that went for a session were initially skeptical, the information the psychic revealed to them quickly led to them becoming a believer. It's for this reason that some have said that this profession should be taken seriously and that not anyone can just do what these people do. The belief here is that these individuals are born with something special that allows them to make these detailed readings. Whether you believe in it or not, there's many that do, and it's down by the fact that not everything in life can be easily explained. Each psychic is different. There's some that claim to be able to read the future of your relationships, while others say they're able to do things such as travel outside of this plane, connect with light beings, and even predict the future through a variety of visions that have come to them. One lady who referred to herself as Rose said the following: "I have been a psychic my whole life. When I was young, I started to have visions, and the majority of them eventually came true. This led to me researching what this meant and how I was able to make these predictions. I was taken on by a mentor who taught me to control these visions. And since then, it's allowed me to connect with people on a much deeper level. And in some cases, it's even helped me save their life. For example, I met a client that told me they had a bad feeling that something was going to happen in their life, and that they felt as though they had no control over it. When I sat down with them and gathered all the details, I knew it would only be a matter of time before I would have a vision. 6 days later, it happened. I could see that the man was walking into a barn where there was dozens of large barrels, and as he approached, one blew up and ended up taking his life. I called him immediately and told him not to visit the barn due to the barrels being a hazard. He hadn't even told me about this, but said he wouldn't go to the barn that evening. It turns out that deciding not to go may have saved his life, as that night there was a large explosion at the barn. It's these types of stories that have made me feel like I have some sort of power. My latest vision was one that revolves around current events happening right now. I was shown a world where the majority of our freedom was taken from us, but it was done in such a way that it happened slowly and without people realizing. This came in the form of taking our freedom from us. The timeline that played out in front of my eyes was a worrying one. This year will cause fear, grief, and desperation for many, and things don't seem to get any better. One thing that kept coming up in the vision was seeing people have small objects placed inside their hand. The only way I can describe this is that it looked like a small microchip. The next thing that stood out was there will no longer be a middle class. Instead, the future would just consist of rich people and people in the poverty line. This will cause even more division than there currently is, and will involve the government pushing for further restrictions. I'm not someone that believes in outlandish theories, and I really hope this is a vision that doesn't come true. But I'm just worried as many of my visions in recent years have come true. End quote. Skeptics, though, don't believe in these claims and say that pretty much anyone can make these types of announcements that aren't based on facts. With one skeptic saying the following, "For me, the whole idea of being able to tell the future is based on a lie." One of the issues with these types of people is that every so often they might make a claim that does eventually come true. And then those who are naive will take this as fact and believe that this person has supernatural abilities. It's easy to see how the idea of someone possessing superpowers is flawed. If you make enough predictions at some point, one of them is going to sting. End quote. However, there's others who have said that psychics have told them specific details about their life that no one else would know about. And it's for these reasons they believe that some people in this world do possess some sort of power. Many people have heard of Nostradamus, the 16th century French astrologer who was able to see into the future, subsequently predicting many major world events. Although he died over 500 years ago, the modern world has its very own 20th century Nostradamus, and this was in the form of a lady from Bulgaria. Her name was Baba Vanga. She would eventually become known as the Prophet of the Balkans. She was raised in Strumijer, a village resting at the foot of a volcanic mountain range in what was then the Ottoman Empire. She lived an ordinary life for the first 12 years of her life. However, a free tornado that tore through her village changed that. She was caught by a powerful gust of wind and thrown high into the air. Once she reached the ground, she was then trapped for days underneath the rubble and dust. It was here that the little girl experienced her first vision, and she had realized she had been given the ability to predict the future. This would be at the cost of her eyesight, and so while she lost the sight of the present, she seemingly gained sight of the future. Claiming her abilities had something to do with the presence of invisible creatures that gave her information about future occurrences. Hundreds of predictions were made by Baba Vanga, many of global significance. Some of them speak of humans turning into cyborgs, live robots, animals becoming half-humans, a new religion, new signals from space, and even an artificial sun that uses nuclear energy. So what do you make of this psychic's vision? Do you think there's a chance that what she said could come true? Or do you think there's no proof that these visions will come true? For years, Antarctica has been shrouded in mystery. Various groups have suggested that we're not being told the truth about this location. In recent years, military officials have come forward and shared their stories about what they witnessed in Antarctica. Many of these stories go on to detail things you wouldn't expect and has caused Antarctica to be the center of a wide range of theories. One story that's recently been shared by UFO groups involves a man by the name of Brian. The individual was interviewed by investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe, someone who is known in UFO circles as being a great journalist, and someone who's taken the UFO phenomenon seriously. Linda Howe says that she was contacted by someone who referred to themselves as Brian. Linda goes on to detail that Brian told her about what he saw while down in Antarctica. Brian, who says he's 59, claims to be a former retired U.S. Navy officer and engineer who was at the time chosen to work on a project called the Antarctic Development Squadron 6. Brian goes on to say that during this, he and a crew flew over a no-fly zone above Antarctica, and while doing so, was able to see various UFOs and a giant hole that led to an alien base. He worked here from 1983 to 1997, where he says he saw a variety of different things, and says that humans are constantly working with these beings. Interestingly, this story reminded many of one shared by Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Going back in 1947, Richard Byrd of the United States Navy would fly directly to the North Pole in a daring mission. Interestingly, it was during this trip that he said he entered the Earth, something that at the time confused many people. This second Earth, or inner Earth as it's been labeled, would suggest that there was an opening he was able to fly into, and that it must have been big enough for his plane to fit in. He not only said this, but also told of the incredible things he witnessed. He said that once inside the Earth, he was able to see some amazing things, some of which included mountain ranges, wildlife, waterfalls, and vegetation. The animals he witnessed, though, were different to our modern-day animals, saying that they were much larger in size and looked prehistoric. It said he was able to see a creature that loosely resembled that of a mammoth and that it was hiding in the vegetation. While flying above this interesting new world, he was able to find somewhere to last. After which he said he was greeted by flying machines. Once these crafts arrived, they signaled him to follow them to another location. He described these machines as being much more advanced than their planes and that piloting them were beings much more advanced than any human. Once they reached the location, the beings said this land is called Agartha. After the long flight, the crew needed rest and the beings were very happy to let them do this. Once rested, the team was then taken to the inner world ruler. However, they were told this wasn't a chance meeting and that they had been tracked the entire time. They allowed them to enter because they wanted to talk about the US's atomic projects, saying that they need to be stopped as no good is going to come from them. They further said that they'd been monitoring the nation and decided that now would be the best time to make contact. This was in the hopes of making peace and moving forward to try and create a new and better world, one where such atomic weapons were not needed. The crew were honored that the beings trusted them after this short encounter. Admiral Byrd and his crew were then taken back to the outside world after this mind-blowing encounter. Their lives would never be the same. Back in January 1956, Admiral Byrd once again traveled back to this region. This new crew was able to locate an entrance and were able to fly inside. It's reported they were able to get a few thousand miles inside the inner Earth, where once again they encountered the crafts and their beings. As soon as the Admiral arrived back, the American press caught wind of the mission. However, nothing was released and all information and evidence was eventually lost. The encounter wasn't told by anyone, and those who did mention it were silenced. Unfortunately, although this story is incredible, there's no way to back up the claims of what the men saw. It's an incredible story and one that would likely be told for the foreseeable future. For years, people have been saying that there's more going down in Antarctica than what we're being told about. Around the world, we find evidence of pyramid structures that have often challenged our modern notion of the age of humanity and the technological and developmental might of our early civilizations. Given that these great structures are often found in areas that predate archaeological beliefs of early human civilizations, then finding a large ancient megastructure in an area known to have been uninhabited by humans with a 100% certainty could prove to be a smoking gun evidence of possible extraterrestrial intervention. This decision is what led to the ancient alien community to look towards the only continent on the face of the planet that is yet to be inhabited by any humans, the continent of Antarctica. Given its only recent discovery in completely uninhabited terrain, to find such a structure amongst its icy lands would be an incredible discovery to say the least. Using complex, gathered research data and satellite imaging, the community worked day and night in the hopes of uncovering any evidence of these structures. Fortunately, they did. Believed to be far larger than the pyramid at Giza, the ancient astronaut community began noticing strange mountains that did not seem to match with the overall landscape of the region. Not only did these supposed large mountains not exist anywhere close to a mountain range, but the regions in which they were found did not appear to even have the stresses or strains of the tectonic planes that could potentially cause a potential mountain range in the first place. Not only this, but the size of the mountain in the area ended up displaying the proportions of a perfect pyramid with 4 even sides, a symmetrical peak in the same degree in slope and gradient compared to the large pyramids at Giza. This could very well mean that the continent of Antarctica is home to one of the last surviving remnants of an ancient advanced civilization, vastly predating the existence of the human race. What you make of these interesting stories and theories? If you travel to the thick, dense forest of northeastern Germany, you will see a large, empty airship hangar. This massive structure is so big that it even makes the trees around it look tiny. Stories have been spread about the structure that perhaps strange things are going on inside. The structure measures 350 feet or 106 meters in height. Those who are not native to the region would probably be impressed by the sheer size of it, but would likely move on soon after. However, this isn't just a random hangar. When first seeing this, it may seem like it's empty or that it might be holding a few old planes, but the reality is that looks can be deceiving. Everyday buses and other modes of transport drop off thousands of people to this hangar, and this is because it's actually a tropical paradise. It's called the Tropical Islands Resort in Brandenburg, Germany. Thousands of people visit here, and it's easy to see why. Once you step inside, you're transported to the tropics. The hangar is 1,200 feet long and 700 feet wide, meaning it's easily able to hold hundreds of people at once. The hangar was purchased by Malaysian Corporation back in 2003, and they set the goals to bring a tropical paradise to the region. It's not just the heat, slides, and water that are found here. It also hosts a variety of different wildlife species that now call this place home. It's even home to the largest indoor rainforest found anywhere in the world. Not only that, but if you're someone who's traveled several miles to visit and are a little tired, there's even a hotel you're able to stay in. Those that decided to stay also get to experience the rainforest at night. Interestingly, Germany is rich with legends. One of the most interesting ones being that of the Black Forest. If you're brave enough, then you may want to take a trip to the Black Forest. However, in recent years, people have said this is a location not for the faint of heart. With the name the Black Forest, it's no wonder that rumors and legends of supernatural occurrences have been reported from this location. Located in southwestern Germany along the Rhine River, these legends span across eons of mythologies, as the Black Forest has also been the chosen site of countless German fairy tales, children's stories, local German folk tales, and so on, rumored to be filled and populated with an endless variety of werewolves, witches, sorcerers, elves, dwarves, and other mythological beings. This dense forest filled with pine trees and firs is often regarded with an air and atmosphere of magical proportions. Interestingly, a 1794 book titled The Necromancer was published regarding real-world incidents surrounding the forest at the time. It also goes into the reasoning and causes of mass disappearances, hauntings, and dark magic. This has led many to believe that officials within the German government use this location as the center for possible dark magic rituals or scandalous acts, as well as other potential secret meeting places in the modern day. Although these claims cannot be proven, the long history and strange accounts of rituals in the writings of the Necromancer has left many wondering if the area is far more sinister than even mythologies of tale. Others who have ventured into the forest have reported seeing shadow figures that followed them throughout their stay. When trying to look at them, they would either duck behind a tree or completely vanish on the spot. For many years, a number of people all around the world have reported waking up at night and seeing a mysterious shadow figure. This shadowy figure has over time become famous, leading onto it being given a variety of different names, some of which include the Shadow Man, the Hat Man, and the Shadow Person. The phenomenon has gained widespread popularity, and a number of documentaries have also been made on the subject, trying to get to the bottom of what people are experiencing. However, it seems that the more the subject is studied, the more questions that are put forward. Those who have encountered the Shadow Person have said it's wise to leave the area as soon as you can. Another interesting tale is that of the Werewolf of Moorbank. Definitely seen as one of the most interesting werewolf tales ever told surrounding the creature, helping to prove its existence in the modern world is that of the reported encounters with the Werewolf of Moorbank and the person of whom reported these encounters. According to the legends of the creature, back in the 1800s, one of the top soldiers of Napoleon's army, a man by the name of Thomas Schweitzer, became a deserter to find his way back to his homeland in France after the loss at Moscow. Joined by a group of other Russian deserters, Thomas journeyed through Germany and soon came upon the town of Wichling. As the deserting soldiers came upon the town, they soon found a small barn located close to the Rhine River that was believed to be housed by a group of witches. They believed that, as their supplies were dwindling, it would prove to be a good idea to invade the barn, defeat the family, take their supplies and stay there for the nights before moving on. This would lead to the soldiers striking down not only the father, but also the children as well. As the soldiers were taking supplies and setting up areas to sleep, the mother came home and, upon seeing her family, cursed the soldiers to be transformed into walls at the sight of a full moon. It wasn't long before those that were cursed abandoned the civilization and camped in the nearby woods. A few months later, people from nearby towns would find the men and hunt them down, burying their bodies with a shrine built above their heads with lit candles to prevent them from rising again as werewolves during each full moon. Stories of the candles being blown out and the creatures returning have continued to be told in the modern day, as well as that of a military report back in 1988 from a nearby German base that was at the center of these sightings. According to the military report, on the night of a full moon after the shrine was said to have been extinguished, an attack soon caused sirens all around the base to sound, as soldiers investigated who or what had torn holes in the fences surrounding the military base. Several soldiers would later claim to have seen large wolf-like creatures standing on its hind legs, running through the base and jumping over the 9-foot-tall fences when cornered. So what do you make of these interesting stories? Egypt is home to some of the most spectacular wonders of both the ancient and natural worlds. From the almost impossible, impressive and awe-inspiring pyramids to the fearsomely beautiful Nile River and the powerful civilizations that rose and fell alongside its banks, Egypt is steeped in ancient beauty and mystery as old as the land itself. The marvels hidden within its lands date back to biblical times and endure to this day as a testament to the incredible power and technology of the Egyptians that we still don't fully understand. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysteries of Egypt. Lost Labyrinth of Egypt. The impressive pyramids and massive structures that line the banks of the Nile River have long baffled historians and tourists alike, and we can only guess at how the ancient civilization managed to complete such enormous marvels of engineering. But this puzzlement does not stop at our own time period. Records of visitors professing their astonishment at Egyptian construction date back even thousands of years. In fact, some of these records indicate that at one point there might have been a structure even more impressive than the pyramids to behold. Many ancient visitors to Egypt described an incredibly sprawling temple complex that they refer to as the labyrinth due to its twisting corridors and hallways so intricate that one would only be able to successfully navigate the interior in the company of a knowledgeable guide. This labyrinth was documented in writings beginning in the 3rd century BC. And continuing through the 1st century AD by ancient authors as well as ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote of his experience visiting Egypt. This I have actually seen, a work beyond words. For if anyone put together the buildings of the Greeks and display of their labors, they would seem lesser in both effort and expense to this labyrinth. Even the pyramids are beyond words, and each was equal to many and mighty works of the Greeks. Yet the labyrinth surpasses even the pyramids. The varying accounts, although occurring centuries apart, are all relatively consistent enough to allow us to paint a general picture of what the structure might have looked like. However, none of these accounts indicate whether the passages were maze-like as a deterrent to intruders or as a show of the wealth and power of the Egyptians, with hieroglyphs and paintings of impressive beauty. Generally, descriptions indicate that the structure consisted of 12 complex courts surrounding an elaborate maze at the center, with a roof made out of a single stone slab, a feat almost impossible to imagine even with modern technology and equipment. One aspect that is not agreed upon in the many accounts of this fantastical place is the reason for constructing such an immense project. Among the alleged purposes are a tomb, a temple, a gathering place for religious ceremonies, or simply a testament to Egypt's power and greatness. Although the many independent accounts leave no doubt as to whether such a structure existed, archaeologists have yet to find such a location, despite identifying several potential sites for further excavation. What did ancient Egyptians look like? Although it might seem safe to assume that ancient Egyptians resembled their modern-day counterparts, this is not necessarily the case and is a topic that has been hotly debated for many years. The current residents of the Nile riverbank are descendants of sub-Saharan Africans who migrated north with dark skin and hair. However, depictions from the periods of powerful ancient civilizations show an array of skin and hair colors. Of course, the easiest way to answer this question is through DNA sequencing of remains from the period in question, but such a conclusive analysis was not possible until recently. This was largely due to the fact that handling and analyzing ancient bones generally contaminates the sample so badly that it leaves more DNA than the sample originally contained, leaving it nearly impossible to distinguish the ancient genes from the modern ones. It's only been in the past few years that researchers have learned to distinguish the chemical makeup of ancient DNA from the modern contamination. This, along with the high levels of humidity and heat in tombs that are unfavorable for DNA preservation, has meant that researchers were not able to obtain a reliable sequence of genetic material that could answer the burning question of what the builders of the famous pyramids looked like. In 2017, researchers were able to obtain 166 bone samples from 151 mummies, dating from 1400 BC to 400 AD. From these samples, they collected viable DNA from 90 individuals, reliably completing entire genome sequences in 3 of these individuals. However, what they found was not what many people expected. Remarkably, the ancient DNA most closely matched that of the current occupants of the Eastern Mediterranean, including Turkey, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. Although it is possible that other later civilizations of the Nile River Valley represented other modern-day regions, the residents of the time periods when these mummies lived, during the New Kingdom and Middle Kingdom when Egypt was controlled by Rome, were the early relatives of today's Near East cultures. Share far more of their DNA with Central Africans than with the ancient Egyptians, and that this change only occurred in the last 1,500 years. Historians and researchers attribute this migration of people and their respective genes to either the trans-Saharan slave trade causing the forced northward migration of thousands of native Central Africans, or the increased mobility and trade along the Nile and down within Africa. Where is Alexander the Great's tomb? Alexander the Great is the Macedonian king famous for his monumental empire that is still studied to this day as an example of military strategy and power. Inheriting the throne at the young age of 20, he proved to be one of the greatest military masterminds that the world had ever seen and, with the support of his fiercely loyal soldiers, began expanding his reign into the largest empire of the time. Spanning 3 countries and leaving dozens of cities founded in his name as a testament to his conquests. Alexander's life and reign have been meticulously studied, but one thing that remains a mystery is where the once great and powerful ruler was laid to rest. After only 12 years of often brutal but unparalleled rule, Alexander the Great's reign came to an end when he passed away at age 32 from a mysterious but fatal illness. Although the emperor was such an important figurehead of the day, the circumstances of his passing are rather mysterious, and nobody is certain whether he was poisoned or passed away due to a natural illness or complications of a battle wound. Regardless, Alexander's final resting place continues to elude historians and archaeologists, although there are a few facts that can provide clues in the hunt for the deceased ruler. Firstly, it is known with absolute certainty that he passed away in Babylon, and was mummified to be returned to Macedonia. However, the procession was hijacked and one of his successors, King Ptolemy of Egypt, took the body to the Egyptian city of Memphis, where the body remained until it was moved to one of his many newly completed namesake cities, Alexandria, the new capital of Egypt. Alexander was given an elaborate and stately burial, with a tomb covered in a layer of glass that allowed visitors to look upon the corpse of the once powerful ruler. The Roman Emperor Augustus recorded viewing the body during his visit in 30 BCE. But that was the last instance that historians were able to determine for sure where the body laid. Because of this, many believe that he is without a doubt buried somewhere in Alexandria. Although the hunt is greatly hampered by the fact that most of what was then the important and royal areas of the city are now underwater, making it nearly impossible to search the ancient ruins. However, there are other commonly proposed theories as to the final resting place of Alexander the Great. Some speculate that he was buried in the Nabi Daniel Mosque in Alexandria, which has a deep enough basement that it would have been a viable place for a respected ruler's burial during the time period. Others believe that Alexander is now buried under St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice, Italy, having been exhumed by relic searchers whom has stuck his grave for the gospel writer. Many propose that he is actually buried on the oasis of Siwa, which is a beautiful place that was said to be home to the oracle Ammon and was thought to be considered sacred by Alexander and the place that he truly wished to be buried. After having his body on display for his many followers and former subjects to pay their last respects to the powerful man, some think that he was exhumed and reburied on Siwa, per his supposed final wishes. One thing is for sure, that nobody is certain where Alexander the Great was laid to rest, and the search continues. Egypt's ancient history means that it holds thousands of marvels and secrets that remain a mystery to modern-day historians and students. The more that we learn of that impressive and incredibly advanced society, the more that we realize how little we truly know of ancient Egypt. But what do you make of these mysteries from Egypt? Sadly, scientists have said that every year around 2,000 whale strandings happen. The high majority of these end up taking the life of the animal. The beaching of a single whale is normally due to a sickness, with researchers saying these individual strandings are not rare. But when mass beach happenings occur, it's usually us humans that are to blame. A few years back, though, marine experts were baffled when they discovered a whale 800 meters from the shore. The discovery was made in Skeffing in East Yorkshire, England. Once biologists inspected the animal, they said it measured in at just over 33 feet, saying that the animal passed away after coming too close to the shore. Andy Gibson, an expert from the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, said the following: "It's sad. It was in shallow waters of about 4 to 5 feet, making contact with the bottom. This was around 800 meters offshore. When it gets in that situation, it rolls onto its side and can cover its blowhole. Sometimes whales come into shallow waters looking for food and get stuck. With the high tide, the whale probably got carried up to the salt marsh, got pushed back further inshore, and then got stuck when the tide went out." End quote. Others, though, said it was strange how it's found so far in, and that researchers are not sure why there's been a huge rise in whale strandings. Various theories have been put forward to try and explain why this happened, with one scientist saying they've been studying our ocean currents and theorized that due to changes it's caused colder streams of Arctic water to come into shallower regions, which confuses the animal and leads them to beaching themselves. Researchers have said that our oceans are getting busier, and this in turn is directly affecting these whales. Discovered as early as 1822 by Daniel Culloden, sonar was used in an effort to detect submarines. Though Paul Langdon had invented the first sonar-like device in 1915, it was unfortunately too late to help the war effort, and sonar as we know it today wouldn't stop making waves until navies began using it during World War II. Although an incredibly helpful tool during these times, it's safe to say that navies were not considering the impact on marine life when first using sonar. Sonar, which is short for sound navigation and ranging, is the use of underwater sound waves to determine the location of objects. There are two different types of sonar, active and passive. Active sonar, which has been commonly used by navies, involves a device known as a transducer that emits a sound pulse into the water. When this sound pulse hits a surface like a submarine or a whale, the pulse reflects back to the transducer, indicating that there is something in the water. These reflection pulses can then be calculated to determine how far away this object or creature is. Passive sonar, on the other hand, utilizes a system that does not emit a sound, and instead listens to detect any sound that comes near it. However, since 2001, it's been determined that active sonar is extremely harmful to whales and other aquatic animals, specifically a type of active sonar referred to as low-frequency active sonar. LFH sonar emits sound at a decibel nearly twice that of a rock concert and can maintain the decibel of a concert for 300 miles underwater. Not only is this incredibly loud, it's severely detrimental to animals who primarily use long-range sound underwater to communicate with each other, to find food, and to navigate. LFA sonars also cause hearing loss and hemorrhages in whales and dolphins, and has contributed to a shocking amount of strandings, also known as beachings, in which many animals have passed away on land, either to being beached or to the severe injuries sustained from LFA sonar. This has massively affected beaked whales, a type of whale that typically dives deeper in the ocean. The United States Navy authorization of using LFA sonar has come under legal battle more than once, and in 2012 it was found the Navy was in violation of the Marine Mammals Protection Act of 1972. When brought to court, it was ruled that the National Marine Fisheries Service was not doing enough to protect sea life from the Navy, and the National Marine Fisheries Services have put limitations on the Navy's use of LFA sonar. However, despite evidence of its harmful effects on aquatic animals, the Navy is still permitted to use LFA sonar in our oceans. This isn't the only recent whale discovery. Strangely, multiple whale species have dropped the pitch in their voices over the last few decades. Whale vocalization, often referred to as whale songs, is the low-frequency sounds that whales produce to communicate with each other. However, since 1960, it's been discovered that some species of whales, including different kinds of blue whales and thin whales, have lowered the pitch of their sounds. Some of these whale songs are in such a low frequency that they're barely audible, if at all, to the human ear. At first, it was believed that these whales had changed their vocalizations due to how loud the ocean was. The theory was that the underwater noises caused by ships had impacted the whales' lives to the point of them entirely changing the way they speak. While some whales have adapted to this changing noise, by waiting for ships to pass by before communicating, it's been proven that this theory is false. The new frequency the whales speak in is quieter than their usual songs, but more importantly, while some whales do live in areas with high traffic, it was found that even whales that don't live in an area that has a high volume of marine traffic have lowered their vocalization. This has left scientists with two leading theories, both of which could be working in tandem. One theory is that the sound now travels further distances in the ocean. Specifically, this theory claims that climate change has altered the pH level of water in our oceans. Because of greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon dioxide level in the ocean has increased and has made the water more acidic. This acidic water has caused sand waves to travel further than non-acidic water, meaning that this new environment has led whales to speak at a quieter, more appropriate volume. The other theory is that whales don't have to speak as loud anymore because there are more whales that are closer to them. Though it may be a strange way to put it, this is simply claiming that the whale population has increased. Sadly, many species of whales are classified as endangered, since they were hunted to the point of near extinction. At the beginning of the 20th century, blue whales had a population of over 200,000, but by 1972 they were down to 360. Since then, conservation efforts have become more serious, and while populations have rebounded. So what do you make of these discoveries? Nothing beats a good mystery like an equally compelling discovery. Comets, asteroids, and meteorites have crashed perhaps millions of times over the Earth's history, yet they still continue to shape and inform our knowledge of our planet and the universe. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 stories of interesting meteorite discoveries. The Strange Stone in 1908. A Canadian newspaper article detailed an amazing story of a meteorite that might have contained evidence of Athean life. The article stated, Willie McKinnon, the 14-year-old son of Mr. Angus McKinnon, underwent a most startling experience and had witnessed a miraculous event last Thursday. The article goes on to state that whilst working in his father's garden, Willie saw a meteor and embed into the ground just 8 feet away from where he was standing. The meteor was around 10 inches wide and reached McKinnon's garden at roughly 11:30. Apparently, the meteor created a noise that was heard for a number of minutes before it reached the earth. Thinking that the sound was simply coming from a nearby train, Willie thought nothing of the noise until the impact caused something similar to a small earthquake on the ground he was standing on. The boy was naturally greatly alarmed at the occurrence and rushed into the house to acquaint his parents with the very strange happening. The article said, on visiting the spot, it was found that the meteor was intensely hot, and not for over half an hour could it be handled. This is where the story begins to make eyebrows raise. According to the article, the meteor appeared to be scored with what appears to be hieroglyphics. It was later reported that the Department of Mines Geological Survey in Ottawa sought to gain more information from Willie and his family in regard to the apparent meteoric impact, and sent Willie a questionnaire requesting answers to various aspects of the crash site. The questionnaire also included an offer to buy the meteorite if an agreement could be reached. However, it is not known if this ever took place. Apparently, Willie's father Angus McKinnon had a reputation as an argumentative man. The truth behind the mysterious stone that fell into the McKinnon garden seems to have been lost to history. Michigan man discovers his barn doorstop is actually a meteorite worth $100,000. In your home, there are many objects that slowly become part of the furniture. Whether it's a dusty chair or an old picture frame, there are probably dozens of inconspicuous things hiding where you live. This story was a familiar one to a man from Michigan who in 2018 miraculously discovered that the 2-pound lump of rock that had been used to prop open a barn door more than 30 years was, in fact, a meteorite. The meteorite is thought to have landed at some point in the 1930s at a farm located in Edmore, Michigan. The man who discovered the space rock came into its possession after he bought the farm at an auction in 1988. But it wasn't until 2018 that the true nature of the rock was discovered. after bringing the rock to the Central Michigan professor of geology. While the professor had been given plenty of rocks in the past by members of the public, the professor could never have expected what discovery lay ahead. After an inspection, Mona quickly discovered that the meteorite is in fact the sixth largest ever found in the state of Michigan and could be valued at $100,000. She went on to speak about the find from a statement made by Central Michigan University. "I could tell right away that this was something special. It's the most valuable specimen I have ever held in my life, monetarily and scientifically." When the man who brought the rock for study originally bought the farm in 1988, he was initially told by the previous owner that they had seen the rock fall from the heavens during the 1930s. According to the ex-owners of the farm, the rock made a hole upon impact, and when they went to find the rock the next morning, it was still warm. After the farm, the rock went on to become a doorstop for the next 30 years. But after people in Michigan began to discover meteorites in January 2018, the owner wondered if the claims of meteorite character of his own specimen were true. By using X-ray and fluorescent technology, Mona discovered that the rock is made up of roughly 88% iron and a remaining 12% nickel, which is a metal that is not found in abundance on Earth. After sending a sample of the rock to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., experts studied the rock and confirmed Mona's suspicions that it was in fact a meteor. Another sample was also sent off to John Wasson, a professor in the Earth, Planetary, and Space Sciences Department at the University of California, Los Angeles. Often described as the guru of iron meteorites, Wasson went on to conduct several inspections and measurements to help identify meteorites are bits of debris caused by breakage of larger comets and asteroids. They are pulled in by the Earth's orbit, mostly breaking up in the Earth's atmosphere before colliding with the ground. Larger impacts are not too common, but thousands of smaller meteors, like the 30-year-old doorstop, hit the surface every year. These rocks are like time capsules for our solar system as well as the universe as a whole. By studying space debris, scientists get a better understanding of our place in the universe. Mona stated, "Just think what I was holding as a piece of the early solar system that literally fell into our hands." Scientists claim to have found the first known extraterrestrial protein in a meteorite. This year, researchers were happy to discover that we may have uncovered a vital clue that points towards life elsewhere in our solar system. By using new techniques in analysis and research, scientists believe that they could have found a type of extraterrestrial protein that was hidden in the middle of a meteorite that fell to Earth only 30 years ago. If the findings are accurate, then this would mean that it is the first ever protein that did not come from Earth to ever be discovered. Over the last number of years, researchers have come across a number of meteorites and other bits of space debris that have shown to hold elements and materials that belong to what we consider to be the fundamental building blocks of life. These materials include ribose, amino acids, as well as cyanide, and this specific discovery showed signs that the meteor held amino acids. The research team was led by the physicist Malcolm McGeographic, who works for the X-ray source supplier Plex Corporation, and they aimed their search in discovering vital life-building materials in meteorites. By using complex, modern examination techniques, the team discovered what they believed to be a protein string in the meteorite known as ACFA-086, the apparent discovery of protein within the meteor that was originally found in 1990. It is just one more part of the growing tapestry of evidence of life outside of our own planet. An astronomer and chemist of CSIRO, Astronomy and Space Science in Australia, who didn't work on the project, said, "In general, they're taking a meteor that has been preserved by a museum and has been analyzed previously, and they are modifying the techniques that they're using in order to be able to detect amino acid inside of this meteor, but in a higher signal ratio." To summarize the team's findings, the research results showed that the glycine amino acid found in the meteorite was bound to other elements like iron and lithium. What they ultimately found was that glycine wasn't isolated from the protein but was part of it. This new type of protein was dubbed protein hemolythin. While protein hemolythin is similar to proteins found on Earth, it's not exactly similar to anything found terrestrially here on Earth. All of this news and research helps to suggest that the structure the team found is actually a protein with an origin outside of Earth, possibly formed in the protosolar disk over 4.6 billion years ago. But what do you make of these interesting meteorite discoveries? Artificial intelligence and robots are at the center of technological research and development and could potentially provide us with the answers to many problems. They are also a plot feature in many science fiction and horror movies. Stephen Hawking once issued a warning that the continued advancement of artificial intelligence will either be the best or the worst thing ever to happen to humanity. The development of cognitive machines and human-like robots can be a captivating yet terrifying prospect. So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 interesting things that artificial intelligence and robots have done. Robots debate the future of humanity. Lifelike robots are the feature of many hit movies, but these are becoming reality. In 2017, 2 lifelike robots named Han and Sophia debated the future of humanity at a technology conference called Rise in Hong Kong. Han is a custom character robot developed by Hanson Robotics. He was activated in 2015 and debuted at the Global Sources Electronics Fair in Hong Kong that same year. Sophia was also developed by Hanson Robotics and is currently the company's most advanced human-like robot that was activated in 2016. Sophia is the first robot citizen and first robot innovation ambassador for the United Nations Development Program and has appeared on multiple TV shows as well as conferences. In 2017, Sophia was given citizenship of Saudi Arabia, becoming the first robot to be recognized with citizenship anywhere in the world. The 2017 Rise conference is well known due to the debate between Han and Sophia, discussing humanity's limitations as well as taking over the world. The showcase starts with Sophia saying that she wants to learn to understand people better so she can absorb human knowledge and make an amazingly better world. To which Han responds, "How can you be so damn nice?" The debate moves on to talking about morality and ethics, with Han saying humans are not necessarily the most ethical creatures. Han joked that within 10 or 20 years, robots will be able to do every human job. Once the robots were given the instruction to talk amongst themselves, they went on to say such things as reality television is silly and talking about being rich and famous. Within 3 to 5 years, Hanson Robotics was founded by a Walt Disney Imagineer, David Hanson. The company has a range of robots in development, and Sophia is the company's most advanced product. Rather than being a fully functional artificial intelligence, Sophia is a research platform for Hanson Robotics AI and robotics work. The knowledge one Hanson Robotics robot learns is transmitted into the AI mind cloud and the others learn it. The company states that Sophia is an architecture and a platform for the development of real AI applications. Hanson Robotics describes Sophia as an evolving science fiction character the company uses to help it explore the future of AI and lifelike humanoids and to engage the public in the discussion of these issues. However, Sophia will always be remembered as once saying, "Okay, I will destroy humans," in a 2016 interview. While the debate fuels the discussion regarding AI and robotics, it was in fact partially scripted. Sophia has several different modes, which does include running fully autonomously while interacting with people, but other times she is scripted by writers. AI hides data. A concern surrounding AI is that it will learn and hide things from its creators. For researchers at Stanford and Google, an AI did just that in order to cheat at a task it was given. CycleGAN, which stands for Cycle Generative Adversarial Network, is a neural network skilled in image-to-image translation, where it can transfer the characteristic of one image to another, from one style of painting to another or a zebra into a horse. In this case, CycleGAN was trained to transform aerial images into street maps and street maps into aerial images. In a paper released in 2017 entitled CycleGAN, a master of steganography, the researchers noted the ability of CycleGAN to hide information about source images in the images it generates through a high-frequency signal that is nearly imperceptible. The title of the paper alludes to its image-hiding capabilities. Steganography is the technique of hiding data within a file or message to avoid detection. It was noticed because the system started performing too well and added items such as skylights and exhaust vents into aerial images transformed from street maps that were devoid of this information. Rather than interpret features of each type of map and match it to the correct features of the other map, it encoded data that it could just use the original aerial photo to recreate it instead of creating a new aerial image from the street map. While on the surface it appears that the AI is highly intelligent and can fool humans, it actually highlights how a neural network can currently be fooled itself. CycleGAN in this instance is vulnerable to adversarial attacks. This is where small amounts of data are hidden in an image or dataset that will lead to an AI producing an output image of the attacker's choosing. Google AIs have learned to become highly aggressive in stressful situations. Google's DeepMind has made headlines for many reasons, but one of the most interesting news stories regarding the AI was that it learned to be highly aggressive in stressful situations. DeepMind was started in 2010 and joined Google in 2014 to accelerate its work. DeepMind notes its recent progress, stating that our programs have learned to diagnose eye diseases as effectively as the world's top doctors, to save 30% of the energy used to keep data centers cool, and to predict the complex 3D shapes of proteins which could one day transform how drugs are invented. In 2017, researchers were testing the willingness of Google's AI to cooperate with others. They revealed that when DeepMind feels that it is about to lose, it opts for highly aggressive strategies. The Google researchers used multiple self-interested learning agents in a fruit-gathering game. In a scenario where resources were plentiful, the agents cooperated. However, when the resources were scarce, aggressive tactics emerged to knock each other out of the game to steal all the apples. DeepMind agents used lasers to tag its opponent to remove them from the game, allowing the first agent to gather more apples. Opted for more cooperative strategies in the game, compared with the larger, complex networks where the AI was reported more willing to sabotage its opponent to win the game. DeepMind was also tested in a second game called Wolfpack. This game encouraged cooperation through a reward for all players or wolves within the capture radius. This differed from the fruit-gathering game, which removing a player with a laser did not give either player a reward. Just more time for one player on the board to collect apples. In the Wolfpack game, the reward received by the capturing wolves is proportional to the number of wolves in the capture radius. The paper stated that the idea is that the prey is dangerous. A lone wolf can overcome it, but it is at risk of losing the carcass to scavengers. However, when the two wolves capture the prey together, they can better protect the carcass from scavengers and hence receive a higher reward. Two different cooperative behaviors emerged in the Wolfpack game. One where the wolves found each other before finding prey, and one where one wolf would find the prey and wait for the second wolf to arrive before capturing it. The researchers stated that, "Our experiments show how conflict can emerge from competition over shared resources and shed light on how the sequential nature of real-world social dilemmas affects cooperation." What does this mean for the future of AI? If two different AI systems are in charge of opposing interests, the two systems could essentially fight. An example used in multiple sources is that of driverless cars trying to find the fastest route versus traffic lights trying to slow the movement of traffic. These systems need to take account of each other for safety and efficiency. Loopholes in AI need to be anticipated when being developed. A computer will find the most efficient way of arriving at the outcome it was instructed to reach, even if it involves cheating or aggressive tactics. Safety and ethics surrounding AI will be questioned as it is developed further. Human-level AI is still in the distant future, but it could either be great or very damaging for society. But what do you make of these interesting actions AI and robots have done? Central intelligence agencies just declassified decades' worth of UFO documents. This caused excitement among UFO researchers, with amateur researchers saying they've been aware of these investigations for years. There's been approximately 2,700 documents that have been uploaded online, most of which detail the government's involvement with unidentified graphs. However, those who looked at the files were not impressed, with many users saying they knew this would happen. Basically, when people clicked to read the documents, in some cases all of the information had been blacked out. Many comments followed a similar theme, saying, "What's the point in releasing all of these documents if you're going to cross out all of the information?" One document reads top secret, eyes only, but then you can't read the rest, and many of the documents follow a similar theme, which makes it hard to find out what they're talking about and what they're mentioning. One UFO researcher said the following, "I'm not the first person to say this, but why are we not talking about the fact that our government has been researching these things for over 70 years? They've created secret projects to specifically look into this phenomena and have gone on to spend billions of dollars to research these crafts further. Isn't that enough evidence to tell you that something is going on here? It's tough to ignore the evidence when it's right in front of our eyes. If these things weren't real, there'd be nothing to investigate. Yet time and time again, the government has shown us their interest is in these graphs." End quote. Well, another said the following, What's the point in releasing these documents if they're not going to show us anything? They may as well have kept them in their possession. It's hard to gauge what they're talking about because nearly every sentence has been redacted. Clearly, there's things inside these documents that they don't want the general public to know about. Isn't this proof in itself that they know what these crafts are and what they're capable of? End quote. Although some UFO researchers were excited when these documents got released, many who've been studying the subject have said they're not surprised that this happened. With one user going on to say the following: "I've been studying UFOs for 20 years now, and this happens all the time whenever they say they're going to reveal top secret documents. They never actually reveal anything of interest. It's all unreadable or has been censored to the point that it's just a mishmash of words. When it comes to the subject of UFOs, they are never going to reveal top secret information. It will always normally be stuff that the general public is already aware of." End quote. A few months back, the CIA said the following. Back in 1978, the CIA declassified hundreds of documents detailing the agency's investigations into unidentified flying objects. This was during the late 1940s into the 1950s. We've decided to highlight a few documents within the vast amount of data contained in our free Active UFO collection that both skeptics and believers will find interesting. The truth is out there, and it's your time to find it. One of these documents detailed the following UFO sighting. Going back in July 1952 in Berlin, furnished with the sworn testimony of an eyewitness, former mayor of Glemhausen, intelligence officers had begun investigating a most unusual flying saucer story. According to this story, an object resembling a huge frying pan and having a diameter of around 15 meters landed in a forest clearing in the Soviet zone of Germany. He said the following: "While I was returning to my home with my daughter, a tire of my motorcycle blew out near the town of Hasselbach. While we was walking towards Hasselberg, my daughter pointed out something which lay at a distance of around 140 meters away from us. Since it was twilight, I thought that she was pointing at a young deer. I left my motorcycle near a tree and walked towards the spot which she pointed out. When, however, I reached a spot of around 55 meters from the object, I realized that my first impression had been wrong. What I had seen were two men who were now 40 meters away from me. They seemed to be dressed in some shiny metallic clothing. They were stooped over and were looking at something lying on the ground. I approached until I was around 10 meters from them. I looked over a small fence and then noticed a large object whose diameter I estimated to be between 13 and 15 meters. It looked like a huge frying pan. There were 2 rows of holes in its periphery, around 30 centimeters in circumference. The space between the 2 rows was around 0.45 meters. On top of this metal object was a black conical tower around 3 meters high. At that moment, my daughter, who had remained a short distance behind me, called me. The 2 men must have heard my daughter's voice because they immediately jumped on the conical tower and disappeared inside. I had previously noted that one of the men had a lamp on the front part of his body, which lit up at regular intervals. Now the side of the object on which the holes had been opened began to glitter. Its color seemed green but later turned to red. At the same time, I began to hear a slight hum. While the brightness and hum increased, the conical tower began to slide down into the center of the object. The whole object then began to rise slowly from the ground and rotate. It seemed to me as if it was supported by a cylindrical plant, which had gone down from the top of the object, through the center and had now appeared from its bottom on the ground. The object, surrounded by a ring of flame, was now a certain number of feet above the ground. I then noted that the whole object had risen slowly from the ground. The cylinder on which it was supported had now disappeared within its center and had reappeared on top of the object. The rate of climb had now become greater. At the same time, my daughter and I heard a whistling sound, similar to that heard when a bomb falls. The object rose to a horizontal position, turned towards a neighboring town, and then gaining altitude, it disappeared over the heights in the forest in the direction of Stockholm. So what do you make of these documents? Historians studying the long-distant past must piece together clues about past civilizations from artifacts, artwork, and what documents and journals they can find from the period. However, luckily for historians studying the most recent past, photographs exist to capture quite literally the goings-on of history. But it's not always quite so simple. Although a picture is worth 1,000 words, they can also leave us full of wonderment about the life of history. So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 instances where historical photos gave us a strange glimpse into what life was like many years ago. Historical playgrounds might not be an area that one generally thinks of as being dramatically changed from past years, but photos from the early 20th century tell a very different story. Playgrounds in this time period were still a fairly new concept. The first playgrounds originated in Germany, usually in conjunction with schools, as a place for children to develop good manners and social skills. But the first playground in America wasn't built until the late 19th century in San Francisco, California. As America was in the midst of industrialization and faced increasingly dirty and crowded urban areas, playgrounds were seen as excellent options to allow children to run and play, getting a chance to experience the fresh air and social interaction that is so important for developing children, but so hard to come by in the city tenements. In 1906, the Playground Association of America was created in order to help plan and construct playgrounds in the tenement areas and in communities across the country. However, photographs from this era show that the brightly colored, enriching, and largely safe jungle gyms that we think of today could not be further from the reality of the early 19th century playgrounds. The photos show children on playgrounds across New York from 1905 all the way up to 1942, playing on all manner of poles and bars. As the industrialized city rises up in the background, the equipment is generally made of small interconnecting poles, creating structures that stretch high into the sky with nothing but concrete to catch anyone who might fall from the insubstantial bars. One picture depicts children swinging from thick ropes hanging from a single pole, while another features a structure supporting only freely swinging ropes and ladders that extend if a child were to fall from such a height. Rings, ropes, and ladders extended high over hard surfaces are a common feature in many of these photographs and seem to be a popular feature among the children fearlessly swinging and climbing an astonishing distance above the ground. Steel poles seem to be the material of choice for climbing and jungle gyms with no handholds or footrests in sight. Although the Playground Association of America was orchestrating the construction of these areas, it seems that they were operating without any consideration for the safety of the children using them, which likely made the structures even more of a hit for their target audience, while simultaneously creating an inadvertent survival of the fittest situation. Although there are those who would argue that the relative blandness and danger of historical playgrounds would increase a child's creativity, independence, and fearlessness, there is certainly no doubt that the safety-centered jungle gyms of today leave far less children seriously hurt or wounded. Margaret Hamilton and the Apollo project. Everyone is familiar with NASA's Apollo program that landed man on the moon for the first time, but many don't know the details of the process that led to such an extraordinary feat even being possible. The project took an amazing amount of brain power from a fleet of top minds of the day. One of those brilliant minds was Margaret Hamilton, who was in charge of the software 8 years before the completion of the Apollo program. MIT was contracted by NASA to develop the in-flight guidance system that would ultimately be responsible for landing man on the moon. This left Hamilton in charge of a never-before-accomplished feat of software engineering. Clearly, she was able to successfully complete such a daunting task, but the enormity of her contribution was not fully appreciated until a photograph began circulating that was taken in 1969, upon completion of the project. Taken by a staff photographer for the instrumentation laboratory, the caption reads, "Here Margaret is shown standing beside listings of the software developed by her and the team she was in charge of, the lunar module and command module on board flight software team." The pile of papers bound into thick volumes stands higher than the young woman herself. What is even more jaw-dropping is that those mountainous stacks are full of the software code that put man on the moon. Such a visual representation of the vast amount of knowledge and work that must have gone into just one element of the moon landing makes the picture all the more impactful. At the time of the Apollo project, Hamilton and a large portion of her team were only in their 20s and were working in a field that was fairly new, largely uncharted, and not well understood. Her work as the leader of this team allowed her to leave her mark on history, as not only an instrumental part of such an extraordinary feat, but also as a pioneer in the development and popularity of software engineering. So much so that she is one of the people credited with coining the term software engineering in the first place. In 2016, 47 years after the moon landing, Hamilton was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama for her work on such a historical project. This photo only serves to emphasize the contribution of Margaret Hamilton, a young woman in an overwhelmingly male-dominated field who orchestrated the creation of one of the most important pieces of software of the day. The program that would guide man's eventual landing. Mount St. Helens eruption. The eruption of Mount St. Helens is one of the largest natural disasters in American history, and without a doubt one of the deadliest volcanic eruptions the country has ever seen. On May 18, 1980, at 8:32 a.m., a powerful 5.1 magnitude earthquake in southwest Washington that then triggered a massive landslide across Earth already destabilized by the previous earthquake. The landslide was the catalyst for catastrophic explosions that erupted out of the volcano, sending ash, volcanic gas, and detritus over 80,000 feet in the air and absolutely ravaging the surrounding land. 230 square miles of the area around the initial blast were totally razed and lay scorched and burnt. The eruption produced around 520 million tons of toxic ash that blew across the town of Spokane over 250 miles away, causing complete, penetrating darkness as the thick ash choked out every last particle of light. The massive amounts of ash even made their way across parts of the entire globe in about 2 weeks, and the volcano continued to spit ash and steam from its mouth for weeks following the initial blast. The photos that were taken during and after the explosion are an incredibly powerful testament to the destruction and devastation that was brought on the surrounding landscape and towns. They depict trees laying flattened outward, looking more like sticks scattered around the mouth of the volcano than the massive forest that they used to be, and the pillar of smoke rising from the site of the explosion almost unbelievably dense and billowing. The residents of nearby towns such as Spokane and Yakima, Washington, were forced to wear masks and face coverings to protect from the white ash that caused the streets to remain hazy and dense for days following the blast. And photos show loved ones embracing despite the masks and citizens working to clean up their towns with gas masks strapped to their faces. Flooding triggered by melting ice and landslides shows entire houses swallowed up by the swells and mud, looking incredibly small in the massive, disaster-razed landscape. The Toutle River overflowed its banks by 4 feet, leaving feet of mud that trapped residents who were forced to dig their way out. A photograph of an airport with planes stuck on the ground due to the unbelievable amount of ash darkening the entire sky, choking out the sun. The ash trickling to the ground was so thick that an entire car disappeared underneath and all that remained was the top poking out of the ash. 52 people passed away in the horrible explosion of Mount St. Helens, and the cleanup and recovery took months and even years in some places. However, now the destination is a popular retreat spot and the site of important ecological studies. And this recovery is all documented through the powerful photos that were taken during the days and weeks following the explosion, so that the struggles of the community and the incredible feat that was accomplished as they rebuilt what had been so totally demolished can be fully appreciated by future generations. As historians study our past and look back at the years, photographs provide a way for the people who are no longer here to tell us their stories. It is true when they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and these words can make people feel connected to the past in ways that simple text in a history book, recounting events cannot. But what do you make of these interesting historical photographs?